Hello.
Hi, Pam. It's Stephanie.
Hey, Stephanie. How are you?
Good. I have the feeling I might be early.
Yeah, we are early. We just getting checked in, just
And
so they can check our mic and check our video.
great.
So I'm waiting.
Everything's fine.
I'm fine.
Thank you. See you all soon.
All right. Thanks.
I just wanted to test Dave's audio.
We hear audio.
Thanks.
Is there video? Cool. We'll see you. Hi, we have a name, Robin D. Is that Doria Robinson?
Yes, that's her.
All right. Bring you in.
Hello. Hi, this is Sohaila. Can you hear me? Anyone?
Yes, we can hear you.
Thank you.
Yeah, hi, Sohaila. Hi, Doria as well. I think that this is Gail. I think the three of us are the only council members on at this point.
Hi, Gail. And I wonder why it's recording. It's the testing time.
I start recording ahead of time.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay.
Are all council members present?
Pam, it looks like all of us except the mayor. I asked Tony
Right.
Tamayo, one of his staff, to call him, and he is calling him. I think he's doing that right now.
Okay.
Yeah, he's in Washington DC and he's leaving a meeting in the White House. So I think this is what is happening right now. So I also contacted Shiva to see if he can be here.
So Dave, I'd like to ask a question.
Yeah,
Should we get started with the most senior?
yeah, we can certainly
with
do
the most
that.
authority? I think that would be Melvin.
I think that's me.
Oh, okay. I thought it was consecutive.
I don't know. I don't know what the rules are. I don't care.
Either one.
I mean, I'm okay with deferring to Councilmember McLaughlin. She used to be mayor for 2 terms, so she knows
Okay.
what to do.
All right.
All right, so let's get started. City Clerk, will you call the roll?
Yes. Councilmember Bonner,
Here,
Councilmember Jimenez,
Presente.
Councilmember McLaughlin,
Here.
Councilmember Robinson,
Here.
Councilmember Willis, Councilmember Willis,
You're muted,
he
Melvin.
was here. Councilmember Cepeda. Councilmember Cepeda is absent. And Mayor Martinez is absent. Okay.
Okay, so well, I'm having trouble with my video off throughout the last few days. I just turn it on and then turn it off and then turn it on again. So bear with me. So Shas, City Manager, do you want to take it from here? You have an agenda for this orientation?
Yes, I do, but Pam, do we need to do the normal process for the meeting of showing the video and so forth, or did that already?
The video for speakers?
Yes, and for the distance, the remote, or do we not need to do that now? I defer to you.
Okay, because it was not on the agenda.
Okay, all right. Well, good afternoon, council members. It's great to see you this afternoon. I want to thank you for joining us earlier today here at 2 o'clock so we can commence with council member orientation. I want to also just from the very beginning say Shasta Curl, Richmond City Manager, and just say thank you for allowing me the privilege to serve in this capacity as your city manager. It's been a real pleasure to serve in this capacity, and in working with the existing council members that were previously on the council, and then preparing to onboard new council members with districts, thought, in conversations with Pam and Dave, thought it would be helpful along with other staff to have an orientation so that we can all hopefully get off to a really great start in this new year and work together in a collaborative manner and really be thoughtful about how to to best move forward in the best interest of the community. And also want to recognize that staff are, just like many of you and just like our community members, during this pandemic, it's been really overwhelming, and recently with the storms. And so just thought that this orientation could help ground us. And so we'll start with the materials that you've received today in your packet. And then what will happen over the course of the next several weeks is that we will also be having a series of presentations from departments that will dovetail this. So we'll have department presentations starting this evening with Public Works that are part of a larger strategy around the mid-year budget process. So just wanted to provide that context in terms of getting started, and just really wanting to make sure that you have all of the essential information you need to be effective in your roles, and that way everyone's operating from the same set of facts and from the same baseline information. And so if there's anything that we missed today, please let us know. We're happy to have additional conversations collectively or individually. And so with that, next slide. I believe Lilia is advancing the slide deck and is going to put it on view mode. So slide number 2, please, Lilia. So here's briefly what we're going to cover today. Really want to make sure you all understand the agenda process, administrative support, training, our finances, citywide documents, and proposed key steps, key dates and next steps. Next slide, please. As we are going through the information today, you're going to see that we're going to also talk about the charter, council manager form of governance. I'll go through our org chart, introduce you to many of the key staff and leadership team, and review the draft administrative calendar that's in progress. And so much of what you're seeing here today, this is the first time it's been put together, I think, in this kind of format and manner. And so I personally, if you have suggestions or ideas or feedback, welcome that. But I do really, again, want to commend all of the staff that have been involved with the development of this information, because it was certainly a heavy lift. And so again, Shasta Curl, Richmond City Manager. I've worked for the city. I always usually just say in excess of 10 years, but I think it's like in excess of 15 now. So maybe I have to update that. And just want to indicate that I'm really looking forward to working with you all in a collaborative manner. One thing, given our structure, that I think is really helpful is around communication. So if you ever have questions of department heads, I certainly understand that the council do have questions, and just want to encourage you all to obviously Pam and Dave have their respective styles that they'll confer with you about. But my preference is to just please copy me on email communications to staff. That way I can help better understand what your concerns are, what the needs are the organization, and then also to help them prioritize. Because in addition to receiving inquiries from the council, we have inquiries from community members, residents, community-based organizations, the labor unions, and also businesses. And so it's really helpful for me to know any concerns that you have, so that I can try to ensure that they're expeditiously responded to, and to make sure that information that should be provided to the entire council, that we do that, because I think that's another important thing. Frequently, you'll receive emails from us that are blind copied, and that's because we've received an inquiry from a council member, and we want to make sure everyone has the same information, so that you all can be effective as a council. And so with that, I'll turn it over to Miss Pamela Christensen, our city clerk. Thank you.
Greetings, everyone. I'm Pamela Christian, city clerk, and I've been with the city of Richmond since March 1st of 2007. And I've been a city clerk since March 2nd of 2015. And I'd like to say that I look forward to working with the council. I've enjoyed working with all the councils, and this one is no different. And I look forward to that. And I also just like to announce that On October 17th of 2022, Governor Gavin Newsom announced that the COVID-19 state of emergency will end on February 28th of 2023. So in preparation of the end of the state of emergency, the city of Richmond is in the process of planning to return to in-person meetings, beginning the first meeting in March of 2023. With that, I will turn it over to Dave Alshire.
Hi, council. I'm Dave Elshire. I'm the city attorney. I've been a city attorney for over 40 years in 12 different cities, including Palm Springs, Rancho Palos Verdes, mostly down in Southern California. We actually, in 2003, we started the firm of Elshire and Winder. That firm has grown to 30 cities that we're city attorney of. And about just over a year ago now, when the city of Richmond was the in-house city attorney had left, and so the city was looking for somebody to step in on an interim basis to help. We volunteered, and there was a process the city was going through to find a permanent city attorney. But after about 6 months, the city, after interviewing 3 candidates, they decided to hire us in a permanent position. So we're working utilizing our firm, also then works with the in-house city attorneys that you have. And so we're kind of, we work in what we call a hybrid model, and I'll talk about that more later. So I think Shasa, your slideshow goes on from there.
Yes. Now we're going to turn it back over to Pam.
Pam, please unmute.
Thank you. I'll talk about the city charter. An electronic copy of the charter is located on the city's website under the city clerk's department. If you need assistance finding this document, just let us know. Charter was adopted in February of 1909. Some of the topics that are covered in the charter include boundaries of the city of Richmond, the powers of the city of Richmond, powers of the city council, powers of the mayor, and direct reports of officers to the city council. That includes the city manager, the city clerk, and the city attorney. And their duties are covered also in the charter. It covers elections and personnel administration. There are other topics there. Just go to the charter, please read it. It'll help you in a lot of situations. And the charter may only be amended by a vote. And just for the record, looks like the mayor's here. And Councilmember Willis.
And I might just add to what Pam said about the charter. In California, there's 2 types of cities, what's called general law cities and charter cities. And less than a third of the cities in California are charter cities. The idea of the charter is that it's like the constitution of the city. So under California law, there are subjects which are considered municipal affairs, and in areas that are municipal affairs, basically the charter supersedes any kind of state law. But in areas that are considered not municipal affairs, that are state law issues, then state law prevails over the charter. So charters are very important things. The cities that are chartered, you'll find all the larger, more important cities in the state are charter cities. but it's something that is a source of legal authority. So you can't just go to state law. You also have to look at the charter. And as Pam said, the only way to change your charter is through a general election. And it tends to be that over a period of time, maybe some issues build up where you might need a charter change. And so if you were going to change anything in your charter, you have to go to a vote of the people. It can't be changed by the city council. That just gives you how the charter fits in with state law. So Shasta, you want to go on?
Yes, thanks, Dave and Pam. So with that, we'll, Lilia, slide 6. So in Richmond, we have a council manager form of governance. That means that the people of Richmond elect you all, the governing body, the city council, and the council and the mayor. And then you all set forth the vision for the community and the policy within. The council then appoints a non-political professional as city manager who implements and delivers services. The city manager oversees the department heads and manages the day-to-day operations in the city. And obviously this is with the exception of the city clerk's office and the city attorney's office due to our charter. And my role as city manager, the city manager remains accountable to the council. So I report to all 7 of you. And the idea behind a council manager form of governance is that it's suited to curtail partisanships and special interests and improve services and long-term results. And so that's the idea behind the profession of city managers. Next slide. So slide 7 is our the most recent version of the org chart. It's a little difficult to read, but what you will see here that I think is really important. So for example, many of you are familiar with the rent board and the rent program. You'll see that that's out to the side on the right. That's because they have their own board. And there was a charter amendment that happened that went to the people that established the rent board. So they're over here a little bit to the right, but we do work to support the rent board, and we do work in conjunction with them, but they do act and report to their board. You'll also see that the city attorney, myself, and the city clerk all report to you all, in addition to the confidential investigative appeals officer, which there's an alignment there with the police commission. Lilia, who is a management analyst here in the city manager's office, also supports this commission. You'll see here from left to right, Deputy City Manager, Community Services, and so this includes the ECIA agreement, which is the Environmental and Community Investment Agreement with Chevron. That is a very important administrative function with the city because it provides for a significant amount of grant opportunities and local measures to mitigate local greenhouse gas emissions, employment and training, the library, our ONS department, recreations, another charter amendment, the Department of Children and Youth. So this is important to comply with the charter that this role is part of and connected to the city manager's office. And 3%, and Ms. White will talk about this later in her presentation when we get through the budget portion, but 3% of our general fund goes directly to the Department of Children and Youth. And then we also have transportation and special projects. Next to that is our chief of our fire chief, our police chief, you're familiar with Lisa French serves as our police chief, Angel Montoya serves as our fire chief. The director of community development is Ms. Lena Velasco. She's not here today. She is on a well-deserved vacation with her family. And so Mr. Hector Rojas, who's we welcome back Hector to serve as our planning manager. So he'll be presenting on our general plan later on. In terms of Director of Economic Development, that is Nanette Beecham. And And under the Director of Public Works is our new director, Daniel, that we recently recruited as well. And the Deputy City Manager over Internal Services, which includes Finance, IT, and HR, that's Nikki Mastay, and she'll go over some of the financial updates with Mubin, our interim finance director. Next slide. So you'll see pictures of these great folks. There's Nikki, LaShonda, and your council liaison, Miss Trina Jackson Lincoln. And next slide. These are all members of the leadership team. Next slide. These are all of our directors. Next slide. And so a topic that we've been spending a lot of time on recently is our Emergency Operations Center. And so in this org chart, the top little yellow box, I am, per this org chart, I am the director of the EOC, number one. Number two is the fire chief, and then the police chief. And then we've got a number of other roles throughout the city in different sections. And so with that, I will hand it over to Chief Montoya to give a brief update on our EOC operations and overview.
Good afternoon, City Council. It's wonderful to be here with you all and going over this EOC organization. And what we'll start with at the top there, the highlighted portion, and we refer to that as our command staff. And as the city manager alluded, that's where it goes in that order, with the city manager being the director. It defaults then to the fire chief and then to the police chief. The highlighted in yellow sections are known as the command staff. And those are sections that are mainly in the decision-making process of the incident. And you'll have the EOC coordinator, which is the OAS manager, which currently we have a vacancy in. And you have the legal officer. That's for all legal issues that coincide with the incident. The safety officer, the public information officer, and then the liaison officer. So these are all major functions that go through the vetting process of making the decisions for the incident. You then go on to the the general staff, and those are the different sections that are mainly running the incident tactical wise, and that is the operations section chief. And you see a lot of names there, but these are names in order of default, where if that person isn't there, it defaults to the next person. And we start with the operations section, and these are the more of a centralized location where the emergency response is being run through. And for instance, the incident that we started off with, the Seaview incident a couple of weeks ago, that would be where we bring public works into that operations section, because they played the major role of that incident, or the potential incident, as we found out. And then we have the law enforcement branch, the fire branch, the coroner if we need it, fire suppression if it's a wildfire, and then of course we get into the public works. We then go next door there, and that's the planning and intelligence section. And this is where it's exactly that. It's plans for the incident. And as we were informing or updating the council, we went through operational periods. An operational period could be a 12-hour period, 24-hour period, or as long as we want to make it. We started off with the 24-hour period. We then moved into a virtual type of mode. And then we eventually morphed into a duty officer mode, which we are currently operating under. And that has to do with the planning and intelligence section, who plans for the next operational period. Then we go on to the logistics section. This is what supports the incident. Everything that have to do with transportation, food, facilities, all this is supported by this section. And then we move on to the finance and administrative section. And this, of course, is the tracking of all our expenses, our reimbursement, more importantly, and this is all handled in this section. One of the things that we learned, there's a lot of lessons learned that we're going to learn from our activation right now. But one of the things that I saw right up front is the planning. Would you see the planning and the operations sections are next to each other for a reason. And right now, the way it's working right now, everybody has done fantastic in filling that gap, because technically the planning and the intelligence section is the most, other than the operations being dynamic, handling the incident, the planning section is really the most important because they plan for the next operational period. And so right now we're supporting that planning section through the fire department, the police department, command staff to support that. But technically it has to operate on its own. And that's one of the lessons that we've learned and we're going to address when we get into the lessons learned and the workshops that follow thereafter. So pretty much this is the setup in the organization chart of what we refer to as the EOC. And again, this was something that that I believe with activation of this org chart and this activation of the EOC has gone very well for us. So I have to really applaud all of the people that were part of this and continue to be part of it. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Mayor Martinez and members of the City Council. My name is Patrick Sills. I serve in the City Manager's Office in the Department of Children and Youth and work with RDCY grant, ECI grant, and special projects assigned by the City Manager. What you're looking at now is the slide of the draft administrative calendar, and this was born out of the budget hearings this past year. The manager proposed this as an idea to support the departments. And what it is it highlights key dates for administrative functions within some of the various departments, and that can be both annually and biennially. And its point is to basically uplift some of the responsibilities within each department. It doesn't all the responsibilities, but it can indicate to you some of the tasks that might be the departments may be responsible for as a consequence of state mandate, federal mandate, agency oversight mandates, et cetera. And as a consequence, some of the work that staff have to do. It's also important because it helps identify or prioritize how the work is laid out throughout the year. And then as a consequence, how staff will be allocating time and the resources that they have to actually meet some of these requirements. Finally, having a list like this, and again, it is a draft, it is a living document, it provides the manager and the entire organization the opportunity to improve accountability and ultimately compliance. Thank you. Turn it over to Pam.
I believe this is Trina.
Oh, I apologize.
Good afternoon. I'm Trina Jackson Lincoln, the City Council liaison. I report directly to the City Council. The Vice Mayor serves as my supervisor. And today I'm going to go over a few things. Next slide, please. So here at 440 Civic Center Plaza, there are offices, equipped offices provided for the Vice Mayor and council members. You should have received your ID badges that give you access to the City Council suite and different city departments. You're able to check your city email account and your voicemails remotely. Instructions have been provided. Hard copy mail is placed in your city offices, in your inboxes. There is a conference room here available to you. Just give me or Janice a call here in the office and we can go ahead and reserve the conference room for you. It seats 8 to 10 people. I am the permanent full-time staff person for the City Council. Janice Featherstone helps, she's the office aide on a part-time basis. City Council technical support is provided by our information technology department. And you'll see here, there is an email address if you need to contact them directly. City council meeting technical support is also provided by our IT department. The city clerk compiles and posts the city council agenda the Thursday before the meeting. And here's, well, I'm sure you've seen samples of the calendar, the Outlook calendar invite. Next slide.
Okay.
And this is,
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
and this slide will be covered by our city clerk, Pam Christian.
I'm jumping the gun, huh? Okay, appointments to city and regional boards, commissions, and committees. The mayor is responsible for making the appointments. He'll place his recommendations on an agenda, and the appointments may be approved by the mayor with the approval of at least 3 other council members. So in the next couple of weeks, the mayor will place an agenda item for the appointments to the regional boards and commissions of all the city council members and liaisons to the different boards and commissions. And then throughout the year, you'll see appointments, recommendations for appointments to different city boards and commissions and committees. And that covers that.
Okay, the next slide will cover our agenda item process for council members. You will receive the instructions on how to complete an agenda report. The deadline for the council members is the Wednesday before the council meeting. Please note that that is the full item, the agenda report and supporting documentation. Please send that information to me and I must have it uploaded to the system by Wednesday at noon. So it is, if at all possible, it is recommended that council members get the agenda report to me the Monday before that Wednesday, so that I have time to go over it and work with staff if I need to and go ahead and upload it. If the information is not uploaded by the deadline, there is a good chance that it will be forwarded to the next city council meeting. And what I'd like to suggest that if you know you have items, let's go ahead and work on getting that item together, and then we'll place it on the next council meeting that is available. Next slide, please. This is a sample of the agenda report template and also a sample of the template for resolutions. These documents will be provided to you for your use. Next slide, please. Travel and training is covered by me. If there is a time where a council member has to spend personal funds while attending training or a conference, please keep your receipts, provide them to me, and I will complete one of these forms and we will process a reimbursement. The city council members are appropriated $2,500 for the current fiscal year. So all expenses related to conferences, meetings, or trainings come out of that $2,500. And I will assist in helping you to be aware of how much you're spending, what your balances are. Next slide. This slide will be presented by Human Resources Director Sharon Taylor.
Good afternoon, council members. We thank you for your service as council members, and our mayor, welcome. My name is Sharon Taylor. I'm the interim Human Resources Director, and I want to go over a brief summary of your benefits. As you see here on the slide, you do receive a monthly salary. You also will receive a $30 stipend for any meetings that you may be assigned to for Housing Authority and the Redevelopment Agency. You also receive a car allowance, $350 for the mayor, $300 for council members. You will receive travel reimbursement, as was reviewed with you by Trina. And you also are eligible for full benefits, including dental and vision. So by now you should have been processed by HR staff, but if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out. And again, welcome. I will pass this on to Ms. Christian, who will go over meeting procedures and council protocol. Thank you.
Thank you, Sharon. City Council Rules of Procedure and Order, adopted by Council Resolution 61-13 on June 18th of 2013. Was last amended on January 18th of 2022 and includes some of the following information: officers' responsibility, duties of the mayor at city council meetings, and duties of the city council members at city council meetings. Under meetings, it describes types of meetings, regular and special. Brown Act requirements for council action, request to staff for technical assistance and or reports. And under this rule, when the request requires an extensive amount of time, for staff to move forward with the request requires the approval of the majority of the council members. Under conducting meetings, we follow the Rosenberg Rules of Order. Under decorum of council members and the public still under conducting meetings, it covers decorum of council members and the public, and also campaigning at meetings. Under order of business, it covers the order of the meetings and what is allowed on the agenda. It also covers the process of removing items from the consent calendar, types of public hearings and the proceeding, and reports of officers. Under agenda preparation, it covers submission of agenda items and preparation of the agenda packet. Under procedural matters, it covers motions, the different motions, the rules of debate, and addressing the council after a motion is made. There are several other things that this council rules of procedure and order covers. So I suggest that you read it. It is on the city council's website, and also under the city clerk's website. And just also let me mention that it can be modified by the council.
Dave, you are muted if you are talking about your slides.
So this is the, obviously the legal issues are quite important. Because of, this is an overview, particularly with the three new council members. In the next couple of weeks, I'd like to find a time when you're all available that we could go over this. I could tell you to just, read all these things, but I think it's complex and it's worth taking a little bit of time, a couple hours for us to go through these individual topics, which are the Brown Act. I'm sure you all have heard of that. That deals with our meeting procedures, the potential for personal liability. You actually have the city is required to defend you as long as you're acting in the course and scope of your employment. We have conflict of interest laws, which you've probably already heard of, but this has to do with reporting. You have to file a beginning office statement and an ending office statement, and you have to file annual statements that disclose your economic interest, and then you have to not participate in decision-making that involve those economic interests. There are ethics laws. There's also what's known as 1234 training, which is training you need to go through. The League of California Cities has seminars for new council members, and it's recommended that you attend those. There's also is this 1234 AB 1234 training in terms of becoming familiar with these rules. So these different rules of ethics, Rosenberg's rules of order, which the city clerk just referred to, all of these things have to do with as you make decisions and have to decide these matters, there's a lot of rules that you have to pay attention to. So I'm going to, I just think it's unfair to just give you a mass of things and tell you to read it. But I think we need to do an additional training, and we'll set up a time that fits your calendars to do that orientation. The other thing I wanted to comment on is, again, the city has always had an in-house city attorney office where you basically had an appointed employee who was the city attorney. And then you had a number of subordinate attorneys and secretarial staff to deal with your legal issues. And like most cities with in-house city attorneys, with more complicated things, with most litigation, you actually farm that out to other special counsel firms. And those actually your outside counsel bills, where you're paying in the Bay Area, legal fees now are up in the $4.50 an hour range. So you actually are paying more money for the outside counsel than for your in-house staff. And any of the major lawsuits that you got involved with, you had outside counsel. The city has decided to experiment with, again, we have 30 some cities we represent. Almost all, well, I think all of those other cities, we're the city attorney, the firm of A&W is the city attorney, and we handle all of the legal affairs for those cities. And as we have cities that are in Northern California, in the Central Valley, the Central Coast, the Inland Empire area in Southern California, a lot of those places, legal fees are much less. And so as we're a statewide firm, we've kind of structured our being able to give these services at a much lower rate. So what we are trying to do here now is I serve as a city attorney. The in-house staff is doing most of the day-to-day things. However, there's a lot of matters that come up where, like, we just sold the marina lease. It was a lease transaction, and we were able to have one of our real estate attorneys help with that at a lower rate than what would be charged by a typical Bay Area firm. And so the theory is, between the work that we do at a lower rate, lower than your other outside counsel, you can end up with a savings. And Shasta has told me I'm supposed to save $1 million to $2 million a year. So we're working on that. But this is now called the hybrid model, where you are using partly contract services for your and then the in-house services, and you try and combine that in a team approach. And we have a number of people in the city attorney's office, but I do want to mention the chief administrative staff, the chief administrative staff, who is Shannon Moore. And so she's the chief coordinator of these services. I don't have her picture here. Shannon, are you on? Do you want to introduce yourself? She might not. Okay, I don't. I don't see her, so why don't we, like I say, I'll be scheduling a time for the three of you to go through these other legal issues to complete that training. So I think you should go on to the next slide.
Good afternoon, City Council. My name is Nikki Mastay. I'm the Deputy City Manager of Internal Services. We'll be going over some municipal finance and budgeting today. I will give you a few readings on understanding municipal finance, a high-level view of our adopted fiscal year 2022-2023 budget and capital improvement plan, the state audit corrective action plan, a few highlights of the budget calendar, and guiding fiscal policies. Next slide, please. Some of the readings you can do to understand municipal finance, the first exposure you'll have is at the new Mayors and Council Members Academy, January 18th through 20th. On January 20th, that is a full day, part 1 and part 2 over financial responsibilities. They will list the California Municipal Revenue Resources Handbook and a public officials guide to financial literacy that can also be found on www.governing.com. In addition to these readings, included in your packet on page 169 is an attachment from the Institute for Local Government's Financial Management for elected officials. On page 318 is understanding the basics of municipal revenues in California, including cities, counties, and special districts. Next slide, please. So the adopted fiscal year 2022-2023 operating budget and capital improvement plan. During our budget season, we do incorporate community and labor input. On page 343 and 359 of your packet is an overview of the 2022-2023 operating capital budget. The operating budget for fiscal year 2022 and 2023 is $206,632,243. The largest revenue categories of the general fund is taxes. That includes property tax, sales and use tax, and utility users tax. There's also a non-general fund budget that is included in your budget document. That budget is $231,706,650. That includes special revenue, capital improvements, debt service, your enterprise funds, which includes your wastewater and your port, internal service, housing, and the Richmond Housing Authority. Of the $231 million, your capital improvement budget is $37,256,854. Some of the sources of funds for your capital improvements include gas tax revenue, Measure J revenue, engineering and outside grants, fire, park, traffic, open space, library, and wastewater impact fees. Now, some things that we do watch out for when we do our budget are unfunded liabilities. CalPERS was estimated at $367 million, and other post-employment benefits were estimated at $102 million. Those tend to grow over time, but we do try and mitigate them. Also, the underfunding of our risk reserves. Risk reserves includes workers' compensation and liability. We are a self-funded city, which means we fund the first portion of our insurance, which is right around $750,000. And then we go into our excess, of which we are insured. We monitor our budget on a quarterly basis, and I get together with all the department heads and we go through our line items to ensure that we are staying within budget and if we need another appropriation, which you may see during mid-year. Next one, please. Next slide, please. Our state audit corrective action plan. So, the corrective action plan was approved by City Council December 20th, 2022. The state auditor came out and they reviewed our financials and they provided 11 recommendations to improve our city's fiscal health. They include review and update fund balance reserve policy, identify contingent long-term budget balancing options, expand our 5-year financial projection model to include risk scenarios, review and update pension funding policies, review and update OPEB funding policies, which is other post-employee benefits, update workforce position analysis, complete housing authority recovery agreement actions, execute housing authority city administration agreement, review and update our contract compliance documentation process, and review and update our contract compliance checklist. We've already updated the checklist for our contract compliance. What we have done there is right now, when we go to do a contract, the insurance piece actually goes for review first. And then that piece, along with a few items that are requirements of whatever contract they may be, whether a consulting contract or a capital improvement contract, that then goes to legal. Legal then does review those contracts. And then they go on to council. Then that checklist is due. So then we're going on to review and update the fee schedule policy. And our next report out to the state will be May 2023. Next slide, please. Our budget calendar, although it appears tiny on screen there, some of the highlights, once again, it's located on page 363 through 367 of your packet. Some of the highlights is at mid-year will be in February. So you'll see the mid-year of this year in February, along with the CIP, which is February 28th. And for the fiscal year 2023-2024 budget, we will have community budget meetings tentatively scheduled for March and April, and our first study session for the first draft in May. Next slide, please. Guiding fiscal policies. Page 368 details the guiding fiscal policies Council adopted April 20th, 2021. These include a guiding budget policy, special funds, reserve policy, encumbrances, fund balance and accounting, fiscal sustainability planning, debt management, private developments, capital and technology projects. Also, to help supplement the fiscal policies are financial policies. They are the cash reserve policy, which we have to maintain 15 to 20% of our general fund total expenditures as cash reserves. Our debt policy, which is not to exceed 10% of our revenue. Grant management policy, an investment policy. And most investment policies is you want to invest to make a high return, but you want to keep your base principal very secure to meet the cash flow of the city. Our other post-employee benefits policy and our swap policy, which states we cannot enter into any new swap debt. I will now turn it over to our city manager, Sasha Curl.
Thank you, Nikki. The citywide guiding documents we will be reviewing today include the General Plan 2030, the Richmond Race Equity Initiative, GARE, Health and All Policies, the Climate Action Plan, the Community Survey, as well as the Fee Waiver and Partnership Policy. I will now turn it over to Hector Rojas, Planning Manager, who will discuss the General Plan 2030.
Thank you, Sasha. And good afternoon, Mayor Martinez, council members, and fellow staff. My name is Hector Rojas, and I'm the new planning manager in the city's community development department. Although I'm newly minted in this role, I worked as a city planner in Richmond for 11 years between 2004 and 2015, and did grow up in neighboring San Pablo, where my parents and relatives still live. I'm here to briefly touch on the Richmond General Plan, which I'm really proud to say I helped get adopted back in 2012. The General Plan is a statewide, state mandated planning document intended to guide Richmond's physical growth and development over the next 7 years. It articulates a shared vision of the city's future and contains goals and policies relative to important topics, including land use, economic development, housing, transportation, public safety, and open space. The general plan is a result of a robust community visioning process that involved the participation of over 2,000 community members, including representatives from local nonprofit organizations, advocacy groups, public agencies, businesses, and educational institutions. It contains many core policies that should guide the city's decision-making. A quick sample of some of these policies include: 1, accommodating future growth through land use planning that focuses on mixed use, high density infill development around transit hubs and corridors. 2, restoring Richmond's compact neighborhoods, which were traditionally pedestrian and bike friendly. And 3, improving community health and wellness by enhancing access to parks, recreation, open space, healthy food, medical services, jobs, and of course, affordable housing. Although the general plan was adopted over 10 years ago, some of its chapters or elements must be updated from time to time. One of those elements is the housing element, which contains policies and programs designed to encourage the production of new housing throughout the city. Over the last year, the Planning Division engaged the community to prepare the housing element update, which will cover the next upcoming 8-year planning period. The Planning Commission reviewed the draft housing element update earlier this month and has recommended its adoption by the City Council. The City Council is currently scheduled to consider the update adoption at its January 24th meeting, and our team is really excited to share it with you. Up next is Ms. Trina Jackson-Lincoln, who will be covering the Richmond Race and Equity Initiative. Thank you.
Hello. Richmond is a member of the Government Alliance on Race and Equity, also known as GARE. We have been a member since 2016. Staff members from various departments participated in the 12-month learning cohort and developed a racial equity action plan. The action plan has 4 overarching goals to improve racial outcomes for Richmond employees and the community through training and community outreach. Over the years, the Race and Equity team has held community forums, lunch and learn sessions for employees, 2 surveys to ascertain employees' opinions, knowledge, and willingness to participate in race equity work in the workplace. The team has incorporated community input on the action plan and presented it to City Council a few times as it was updated. Each of the 4 goals of the action plan has 7 to 10 recommended actions to help us achieve the 4 overarching goals. The first goal deals with internal work, and it is that City of Richmond employees understand and are committed to achieving racial equity. Goal 2 deals with community engagement. Richmond residents view the jurisdiction as an effective and inclusive government that engages community. Goal 3, city services provision. City of Richmond is a racially equitable employer and promotes racial equity in contracting and procurement. And the last goal deals with life outcomes. Healthy life outcomes are increased and racial disproportionalities are eliminated. Additional information is provided on the city's website, on the GEAR page, and on our Transparent Richmond Open Data Portal. The next slide will be presented by Gabino Arredondo. Thank you.
Good afternoon, buenas tardes, Mayor and City Council members. My name is Gabino Arredondo, Interim Director of the Richmond Housing Authority. The City of Richmond has been a leader and innovator related to health equity. We have had one of the first health and wellness elements in general plans in the country, and also a health and health policy strategy and ordinance. HIP, as we call it for short, recognizes that health is not just something that happens in the doctor's office, but in our everyday decisions as elected officials and also as city staff members. It's a collaborative approach to improve health equity overall in the City of Richmond. Some of our great examples related to this work is many of the parks grants that we have got to improve the built environment, to create spaces for families in Richmond to thrive and exercise and come together, have been supported through our health and health policies efforts. Other collaborations with other institutions like Contra Costa Health Services related to increasing insurance coverage for the uninsured and undocumented and residually uninsured have also been supported through our health and health policies approach. Some of our ways that we track our progress are 2 ways. One is through our Transparent Richmond online data portal, and also through our reports, progress reports. We have included one in your packet. And one key finding from that report is that, over 10, 15 years of our health work in Richmond, we have seen some progress related to life expectancy increasing in our community, which is great, but still inequities exist. And that's why we have targeted approaches to be able to address that. And our next presenter will be Samantha Carr, discussing the Climate Action Plan.
Thank you, Gabino. Again, my name is Samantha Carr, and I am the Environmental Manager in the City Manager's Office, Economic Development, Environmental and Health Initiatives Division. In late 2016, the City of Richmond adopted a climate action plan, also known as the CAP, to serve as a roadmap for the Richmond community to reduce greenhouse gas emissions, create local jobs, and prepare for the impacts of climate change on public health, infrastructure, the economy, ecosystems, and public spaces in our community. The process included a robust community engagement effort that leveraged community input provided to the General Plan 2030 and the Health and All Policy Strategy. In February 2020, the city launched its open data portal, including data related to the Climate Action Plan. An open data CAP dashboard enables community members to more easily access real-time information about Richmond's progress towards achieving its climate action goals. A few of the projects city staff members are currently working on to implement the Climate Action Plan are the creation of a Green Blue New Deal workforce development plan with just transition framework, development of a strategy to equitably transition existing buildings in Richmond to all electric, and implement the Transformative Climate Communities Grant in collaboration with multiple city departments and community-based organizations. Additionally, information regarding upcoming events, projects, and initiatives are sent out over the Economic Development and Environmental Initiatives listserv. If anyone needs any help signing up, feel free to contact me. Thank you. And now I will pass the mic over to LaShonda. Thank you.
Thank you, Samantha, and good afternoon, Mayor Martinez and members of the City Council. My name is LaShonda White. I am the Deputy City Manager for Community Services. Today I have the opportunity to share a little bit about the Richmond Community Survey with all of you. Every 2 years since 2007, the City of Richmond has enrolled in the National Research Center. Now they are collaborating with an organization called POCO to enroll in the National Citizen Survey Program to conduct a community survey. The survey helps the City of Richmond assess the quality of life and services provided to our residents. It helps track resident perception of quality, of service quality, community amenities, and public safety over time. Helps make informed decisions about how to allocate resources. It helps us assess support for local policies. It allows us to gather information on resident use of services, and it allows us to compare results from previous years to measure changes over time. The survey includes standard questions that are similar across all of the National Research Center's surveys, which allows us to compare our results with those from other jurisdictions that also conduct the survey. We also have custom questions that allow us as a community or a city council to craft questions that are very particular to what is happening within the city of Richmond and allows us to get input from our residents. And then there's also a full page of demographic questions, which really allows us to disaggregate the community survey data for further analysis. So per city council request during the December 20th, 22 city council meeting, city staff will work with council to help create custom questions for the 2023 community survey. And we look forward to working with you all. Next slide, please. So the Community Services Department Recreation Division recognizes the value of partnering with outside organizations to provide services that benefit the Richmond community as a whole. To provide support to organizations that provide a community service and to create an equitable process, in 2022, staff brought forth and City Council approved a fee waiver policy and partnership policy. The fee waiver policy is used to determine when event-related fees can be waived for short-term and temporary events. The purpose of the partnership policy is to establish policies, guidelines, and procedures that govern how partnerships between the Recreation Department and external entities are evaluated, created, and managed. The partnership policy would cover organizations that were interested in longer-term use of city facilities or parks, and such organizations desire to expand or enhance the services provided to Richmond residents. If you have questions or want more information about the partnership policy, feel free to contact Recreation, myself, or visit our website. And with that, I will turn it over back over to City Manager Shasta Curl to talk about key dates and next steps. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. White. In terms of key dates and next steps, The IT department, Sue Hartman, is here to help you all with your needs related to technology. So if you need assistance with anything, would like to receive additional training related to your equipment, please contact Sue Hartman. Her email is there as well as her phone number. Her entire team, which Sue refers to them as Team Awesome, along with all of our city staff, are awesome. They're extremely responsive and will help any way they can. And I think some of you just had an opportunity to meet some of them today. In terms of next steps, as I mentioned earlier, we're going to continue the conversations that we started here by continuing to have individual department overviews that dovetail as part of the mid-year and capital improvement plan presentations. So that way, the idea is that you'll continue to get a deeper understanding of what all of the departments and divisions currently do based on the fact that we're a full service city. So we have everything from a port, police department, fire department, Department of Children and Youth, as well as other initiatives that the city council has asked staff to work on. And then the idea is that you will be in a position over these next 5 meetings to be able to adopt the mid-year budget by February 28th. You also, some of you are currently at the League of Cities training now, or will be tomorrow rather, in Sacramento. So I'll see some of you there. Then the next step in the process is an opportunity for us to work together collaboratively on strategic planning. And so I will be, as part of the normal agenda process, the mayor meets with the city manager and city attorney's office, city clerk's office. We go over the agenda. We talk about items that are going to be on the agenda. And so we're currently evaluating proposals and firms that responded to an RFP around strategic planning. And I'm hoping that that's something that we can move forward with to ensure that as we have you all as new council members, we can understand what your priorities are collectively, and so that we can work together in a thoughtful manner. And I think having these departmental presentations so you can see what staff is already working on, much of which, for example, like the 35, like a number of the grants that we receive, really do help guide the work that we do here in the city. And other sources of revenue, for example, the Public Works Director this evening, when we talk about the gas tax, that'll help better understand how paving is done and how that's funded. And it'll highlight where there's probably real areas where we need to make additional investments, still complying with the state audit requirements, but where we need to make additional investments in the built environment to improve how the community looks. And to help also recover from the storm that we've had, because it's done a great deal of damage to our paving, as well as other physical structures. So we'll talk a little bit more about that this evening as well. And so next slide. So I hope you all have found this informative. You have the whole team here available to answer questions. And we'll turn it back over to the mayor. And I will work with the colleagues here to answer any of your questions. We'll field them and figure out who's the right person to help respond. Thank you so much. Mayor Martinez.
Thank you. Yes. The mayor's office, we, I think it's already been said, we make appointments to commissions and to the liaisons. We chair the meeting, city council meeting, and help form agenda. The mayor's office also is what do you say, a public face. We go to meetings, to events, and we represent the city of Richmond in a celebratory way. uh, we do. I'm currently at a mayor's conference in Washington, D.C., and I don't have anything except my phone in front of me. So,
well, you're doing great. I was just going to turn it over to you to see if you wanted to also field any questions from the council members if they had any. But I don't see anyone's raised their hand.
One, Sohila, Councilmember Urbana.
Yes, thank you very much. So I heard that the general plan was would be on the agenda on the 24th. That's next week.
The housing element of the general plan, the housing element. And Hector, are you here? Can you turn your screen back on? Okay, perfect. Please continue.
Actually, my question is, if it's going to be approved, then don't we need a bit more time just to learn and provide feedback, if any?
Yes, that's a good question and a good point. Under normal circumstances, we would definitely give you as much time as is needed to digest and analyze the information. We're going to be trying to do our best to summarize that information for you that night. The extenuating circumstance that we're basically stuck with right now is that the cycle element that is due to the state, that deadline is January 31st. So there are some potential legal ramifications to the city not adopting the housing element on that particular night. And again, I apologize, but we would provide you more time, obviously. But like I said, we're going to be providing as much information that night so that you can understand and digest that information in time.
And if I can offer, the other thing we can do is that agenda will come out that Thursday afternoon in advance of the 24th. And so the other thing that we can do is we can work with the council members. So if it comes out on the 29th, so for example, if council members have any questions or concerns in advance, you can certainly feel free, Hector, I'm going to volunteer you since Lena's not here, to send Hector an email. And he can call you individually and answer your questions and explain more about what a housing element is and why it's important. And I also think this is a really important reason why we're starting the administrative calendar, because I really want to thank our staff, because in addition to working on the EOC, we've had a lot of community development and planning staff working to support the unhoused and working on numerous other grants and entitlement of projects citywide. And so this is kind of to show what happens when we're, if we're really stretched and we're trying to get everything done that we want to get done, and we want to do better and we want to be earlier, but we have a finite amount of staff capacity, right? And so unfortunately, from time to time, these things happen. And we'll certainly try to meet with you individually to answer questions. And if the council doesn't feel comfortable adopting it, obviously that's totally within your purview. But as Hector mentioned, and perhaps Dave can cover this with you all individually in terms of the legal piece of that. I know we've got Goldfarb and Littman that are working on this with the planning staff, but it's very important and something that everyone's talking about in California, and everyone's essentially trying not to be sued.
I very much appreciate your view and opinion. However, how many pages is it, and what are the critical issues, and are there any controversial issues?
By and large, it hasn't been a controversial item. We have had a very robust community engagement process. The Planning Commission do it in one night and did recommend it for city council approval. We've also sent it to the State Department of Housing and Community Development in December. So they're reviewing it to make sure that the housing element meets all of the state legal requirements for contents in housing elements. The other thing that I would say is that, you know, the housing element here in Richmond, we've been doing a great job building affordable housing, much more so than surrounding communities. So we're in really great shape. We have the zoning that's necessary to meet our housing targets here in the next 8-year period. So hopefully you'll be able to see that during our presentation next Tuesday. And again, as Shasta said, certainly it's within your purview to continue the item, but understanding there may be some legal ramifications with it. And I would say that we're also in a better situation than a lot of the surrounding communities in terms of meeting the deadline. I know communities that have not even started their housing element update, and we're literally at the finish line. So again, we'll present the information to you next Tuesday, and I think we'll probably go from there.
I very much appreciate your response. If you look at the map behind me, that's the map of the very high fire hazard area. We want to make sure the housing capacity matches evacuation capacity. So I may not have any problem with the outline. There may be something in the fine prints. So I just want to make sure that we don't rubber stamp something we don't, that we don't understand. Want to make sure there's enough time. In general, is there a way you could have the presentation and we have a special meeting for half an hour just to approve it, like 2-3 days later, or procedurally?
For that,
I'm sorry, this is not agendized, the housing element. This is something that we should discuss offline. I also have some concerns, and I don't like the city council to appear as if we are rubber stamping issues brought forth by staff. But as I said before, this is not the place for this conversation.
I'm not talking about the details. I'm just talking about the procedure. But Mr. Mayor, if you think it's inappropriate to continue, it's okay.
Well, we're talking about a specific item. We're not talking about the procedure of if you want to talk about the procedure in an abstract way, as opposed to focusing on the housing element, then we might do that. We might ask the question, how do we proceed when an agenda item is brought to us at the last minute?
Thank you. Yeah, that is my question. In that case, instead of taking a vote right then, can we ask for a special session for like half an hour, an hour towards the end of the week before the deadline, whatever it may be, to approve it?
yes.
Thank you.
And you can also, another thing that we've been working on with the city attorney's office as it relates to a number of these high priority items that are extremely complex, that have legal risk, is that we've continued meeting to a date and time certain. That's another way that we've approached it. And so, Dave, do you want to talk, if it's appropriate through the chair, Mayor Martinez, can we talk a little bit more about how items can be continued to a date or time certain?
Yes.
And then followed by perhaps Ms. Christensen can talk about how do we generally, how does the clerk's office work with council and the mayor to the options around calling special meetings, if that would be helpful?
That would be helpful.
Okay, thank you. Dave?
I actually think the question that the general plan was one of the topics that we brought up. I think the question that is raised here at a staff level, we should talk a little further about the schedule, whether there's some time built into the schedule. In general, because so many houses, agencies are behind on their housing elements, I think that people that are just a little behind are not going to be in a lot of hot water because there's so many that are in trouble. So I just think we should discuss further with the planning department the schedule on this to see if some additional time can be provided for review.
As far as I know, the statutory deadline is the end of this month. So I think the solution that was presented about having a special meeting before then, I think could work. From my standpoint, I've been aware that there is parties out there throughout the state of California that are just presenting lawsuits just based on not meeting the deadline. So my preference would be to be on time.
I don't think it's the place here to discuss this. I'm I think the
Okay,
council
my-
members raised the issue as to whether the schedule could be put together to provide a little more time for review. And I think we should just discuss what the possibilities are.
I think we should,
Oh, I'm sorry, go ahead, Mayor.
I think we should bring the conversation back to orientation of how we conduct business in the city of Richmond, as opposed to focusing on a specific item.
Okay, thank you. We will send out an email with where people can access information. And then Pam, did you want to talk a little bit about how the meetings are called when they're outside of the 3 standing times?
Is that okay, Mayor Martinez?
Yes, it is.
Okay,
Please.
a special meeting may be called by the mayor. The mayor does not call the special meeting. It may be called by 4 council members. That's how special meetings are scheduled.
And for special meetings, you can only discuss the items on the special meeting agenda.
Right. And to an item specific to what the meeting is being called for. So it's not just a meeting there where you can just start adding all type of items. It's a special meeting to discuss a specific item.
Correct. And what is the scheduling for noticing the meeting?
For a special meeting, you need 24-hour noticing.
Okay, which is different from a regular meeting.
A regular meeting is 72 hours.
Right. Okay, thank you. So,
Mayor, can I just add one other thing? So generally speaking, staff do try to work, that's why we're putting together this administrative calendar so the council can see what's in the queue monthly. And so the idea is that to have these meetings, even on Zoom, it's an extremely heavy lift for staff. The city clerk's office is involved, city attorney's office, city manager's office, the IT department. And then when you return in person, it will also include public works and then also PD. So those are as a starting point, and then sometimes fire if there's occupancy concerns. So at a minimum, sometimes to have a meeting, you have 7 departments as a starting point, and then those departments that are also participating in the meeting. And so just want to flag that there is a lot that goes that is involved with having a meeting, and just wanted to share that with you all so you have the context.
point taken. And before any meeting is called, we should be mindful of the amount of work that goes into holding those meetings. So if there's not any other comments, are there any other comments, any other questions?
I have one more question, if I may, and that is how long in advance do we receive the agenda? And if the agenda involves a lot of reading, can we get it like a little more in advance rather than just a week?
May I answer that question, Mayor?
Yes.
Okay, so the agenda packet is published the Thursday before the council meeting. So you have Thursday, whenever you receive it, Thursday, and then Friday, and then the weekend, Monday, and then Tuesday before the meeting. So I would suggest that you read the packet, and then if you have any questions, I would send those questions immediately to staff so that you may have your answers, and that you're not just asking a lot of questions because you didn't get a chance to read the packet at the council meeting. That's just my suggestion.
I understand and appreciate it, but my question is specifically to the city manager. If it's possible to get heads up with some information before it actually goes on the agenda.
Well, generally to comply with the Brown Act, what we try to do is there's 2 ways that we can approach things. One, for example, things like the housing element, there's websites on the city's webpage where when we have these big comprehensive projects, where we try to put information that all of the public can receive. But when we're asking you to make a policy decision or recommendation, that information needs to be provided to the entire council at the same time and made available to the public if it's an item for open session. So if it sounds like, and one of the things we have been talking about internally here as staff is the calendar and the timeline, right? Not just on our end as staff, but then also when council members want to agendize things. So maybe as part of our strategic planning, this is something that we can talk about is, does the council want to receive information with a longer lead time? And then how can we also make sure that when the council's putting agenda items on, the city attorney's office, the city manager, and the finance director have enough time to review it so that you have informed information on both sides.
Thank you very much. That'd be great. That's what I meant, to the entire city council, so we can read ahead of time, get the questions answered, and have more efficient public meetings.
Yeah, and so if there are specific dates, so in your the procedures that the city clerk went through, there's certainly an opportunity for us to refine some of those dates, and even refine things like one of the things I was conversing with the city clerk about with, you know, so many of us have children, so many of us are grandparents, you know, there's people who are grandparents. Wouldn't it be nice if our calendar kind of potentially aligned closer to the school district? So then that way if people want to be out in the summer, it's not just in August. And then I was reminded, oh, there's certain things that we have to get to the county for elections. So we couldn't precisely mirror the school district, but we could potentially, you know, shift some dates around to provide more flexibility for working parents and grandparents, aunts and uncles that want to be engaged with their children over the summer. So I would propose that we talk about all of that when we do our strategic planning, unless the council wants to have it as a study session item sooner.
Yeah, and to address Councilmember Bana's question, agenda items aren't on the agenda until the Wednesday, and so they're not there for us to see because we don't have the agenda until it's published on Thursday.
I understand, Mr. Mayor, but like there are cases that the city manager has a calendar, certain things need to be done by certain dates. So they go on the calendar in city council meetings prior to then. It'd be nice to have that calendar open.
Right, yes. And that's something that I requested of the city manager to
Yeah, so that's in your packet under the draft administrative calendar. And that's something new that we've never had here in Richmond before to this degree of granular detail. And so we're putting this out as a draft. That's a work in progress, and we're going to need to, as the year goes on, add to it. So the next year it will be better. But historically, it's not something that I'm aware of that's existed in this level of detail. And so that's part of your packet. And as it's updated, I will work with Mr. Seals and the city attorney and city clerk to update it for you all. But more new stuff. We're getting organized here in Richmond. It's a work in progress. We're on a path of continuous improvement is what I can say.
Yes, and I don't know whether you've told them, but in the conference room upstairs on the 3rd floor, there is a timeline of various projects that the city is working on. And so you should take advantage of that and go up there and look at the timeline and see what see where the projects are. And by looking at that, you might have questions to ask. Or make suggestions as when presentations might be made before we have to make a final decision. So if there's not any other questions, I guess.
Councilmember McLaughlin's hand is raised.
Oh, okay, thank you.
Yeah, so I just wanted to make the comment that the reason we have the 12 o'clock deadline for council members, staff has a deadline for putting their items on the agenda, which I think is a little bit, they have to get it in earlier, but council members decided, and this was some years ago, to have the Wednesday at 12 o'clock deadline because let's say we have a council member on Tuesday, a council meeting on Tuesday, and sometimes issues come up And we may want to get an item on based on input from the public for the very next meeting. So if we put so we actually, it used to be Thursday, I believe, but then staff said, you know, and council members wanted more time to review the packet, but we kind of compromised and said noon on Wednesday is the deadline for council members to get their items on the agenda, so that the agenda packet could go out on Thursday. So if we move that deadline to an earlier, it would be like a Monday or something, I don't know when, it would indicate that we couldn't put something on. I mean, that's a decision we would have to talk about. And I also want to, I don't know if Councilmember Banna saw this or not, she probably did, but I just want to make sure you saw that our planning manager put the draft housing element link in the chat, because there was a lot of community input. Is that exactly what we can expect with an agenda report, a staff report, or will that change? I know.
Yes, Councilmember McLaughlin, that link will not change. It will be included in the staff report. And I might add the initial draft was available to the public in November, and the final draft was put online in December. So it's been made public for a while, but I understand this is probably the first time that some of the council members might be seeing it. So hopefully that link proves a little helpful.
Okay, thanks.
Yes, okay, well, if there are no other comments.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
can I make another comment?
Yes, please. I can't see hands. On
I
my
know
phone.
this is what I said. I don't know if we had touched on this, but the way that items are being pulled from the consent calendar is also another thing. Like, so maybe City Clerk, can you explain the new council how, like, consent calendar versus the city council business and the pulling of items from the consent calendar to be discussed in the public meeting? Thank you.
May I go ahead, Mayor?
You may.
Okay. So for the consent calendar, items under the consent calendar are usually non-controversial. The council may pull items from the consent calendar at will. It would be, I mean, they could inform the department head that they are going to pull the item, but they are not required to. The public must let the city clerk and the sponsor of the item know by 2 o'clock. If they would like to pull an item, and they must discuss that item with the sponsored department head. Under new business includes items like ordinances and items that need further discussion and approval by the city council. So that's the difference between a consent calendar. Consent calendar, you just line up all the items, one vote approves all those items. And under new business, those items need to be discussed. Is that what you wanted, Councilmember Jimenez?
Yeah, I think one thing is that if we want to pull some items that has been the staff has been working on, we will have to communicate with the staff first.
Not the council.
Not the council? Oh,
No, the council may pull items from the consent calendar.
Yeah, it's been a past practice as a professional courtesy that the council members, it's not a quote rule, but as a professional courtesy, so that way we can try to get the item in a better, and understand the questions that are going to be answered or asked rather during the meeting, that we do ask the council as a professional courtesy to let the respective department head and city manager, city clerk know if something's going to be pulled so we can plan accordingly. Because sometimes, you know, somebody's made arrangements for childcare, or we have consultants that we're paying on an hourly basis, and we can tell them, actually, instead of being here at 6:30, the item's going to get pulled. We don't need to pay you till then, we'll call you when we think your item's gonna come on, so we can save, 2-3 hours of consultant time. So for a myriad of reasons, we do like to know ahead of time, and also to know if the council members have a lot of questions. We do try to ask we do respectfully request that the council members let us know in advance, so we can try to get that information and respond to the council, or we'll tell you if we can't in the timeline that you've requested. If we can't respond to all those questions, and then sometimes staff will say, based on the inquiries received, we think we should hold this item over. It's not an emergency. It's not ready to go. And so that kind of pre-conversation means that in public, we can have a smoother meeting if that's the desired outcome of the council.
And also, Councilmember Jimenez, if a council member places an item on consent, the public may just request that it be removed without discussion. So, and I think those, the rule change regarding pulling items from consent in January 18th of 2022. That was an amendment to the rules and procedures.
Thank you.
And so what happens though when the item is pulled, then it means it goes to the end, right, Pam? So then that means that the staff, if they were thinking it was going to be consent, then they have to know that they need to make arrangements to stay late or stay on late versus just being at the meeting at the beginning.
Or the mayor may request that the item be placed in a certain specific spot on the agenda. And it could be, his ruling could be overruled by 4 votes of the council.
So the more collaboration and transparency we have up front with staff, it enables us to be more responsive to you all and to have a smoother meeting that takes less time.
Mayor, I do not see any public speakers for this item.
All right, well, if there's no public speakers and there's no more questions, we may adjourn.
Last quick question, if I may, Mr. Mayor. Thank you very much. Thank you, everyone, for your patience. So I understand that if I want to contact any of the city staff, I need to ask permission from the city manager, but then no?
No, I'm just saying that if you want to email staff, well, there's a really clear procedure in the document that's outlined. My request to simplify things, because I want to promote transparency within the organization, is that you just include me, copy me on the email correspondence to staff so I can help them prioritize.
Thank you. I just wanted to make sure at the beginning when I have too many questions, I don't bug you.
Oh, no, I think it's good that everyone has questions, because now to the degree to which we can answer questions now, it'll make the year in your terms better.
Thank you very much. And thank you, everyone, for your patience.
Well, thank you for asking the questions. The more questions, the more clarity. So I appreciate that. Now, are there any other questions? If not, then this meeting is adjourned. And we'll return.
Thank you.
Thank you. We finished 12 minutes early. Wonderful. We're off to a good start.
See you at 4 o'clock.
Thank you, everyone.
Okay.
Thank you, everybody.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye. Thank you.